Welcome to Speak English Avenue, my friend. Today I want to share something very personal. I never thought I could speak English fluently. I was afraid. I was lost. I was confused. Every day I would open my mouth to speak, and nothing would come out, just silence and fear. People around me were speaking, and I was watching. I felt invisible. I felt small. I felt ashamed. But then one day, everything started to change slowly. I found something simple, something free, something always available. I started talking to ChatGPT every single night. Just me, my phone, and my broken English. I would type one sentence and read the reply. I would learn one word and use it tomorrow. Did I feel stupid at first? Absolutely yes. Did I want to quit? More than once. But I kept going because something felt different now. I was not alone anymore in my English journey. ChatGPT never laughed at my grammar or accent. It never made me feel small or embarrassed. It corrected me gently and explained things so clearly. I started to understand English from the inside out. I went from 0 words to full conversations slowly. From broken sentences to speaking with confidence every day. My listening improved. My reading improved. My thinking improved. English was no longer a wall blocking my way. I started dreaming in English without even trying hard. That moment I knew something powerful had truly happened. Have you ever felt too late to start learning? I felt that way every single day before this. But let me tell you what I discovered quietly. It is never too late to begin again, boldly. I was not the smartest person in the room. I did not have a teacher or expensive classes. I had only my phone and one strong desire. The desire to change my life through this language. Every morning I practiced speaking in front of my mirror. Every evening I reviewed what ChatGPT had taught me today. I was building something slowly, brick by brick, word by word, and the foundation was getting stronger with every passing day. Most people never start learning English because of one thing. That one thing is not grammar, not vocabulary, not time. That one thing is fear, pure and simple, raw fear. Fear of making mistakes in front of other people. Fear of sounding funny, strange, or completely uneducated. Fear of being judged by friends, family, or strangers. Fear of opening your mouth and saying the wrong thing. This fear is not small. It is not light. It sits heavy on your chest every single day. It follows you into classrooms, offices, and social situations, quietly. It whispers to you that you are not enough. And the worst part is that fear feels so real. It feels like a wall you simply cannot climb over. It feels like everyone else is fluent and you are not. It feels like you started too late to catch up now. I know this feeling because I lived inside it. I would sit in a room full of people speaking, and I would pray that nobody would look at me. I would pray that nobody would ask me anything today. Have you ever pretended to understand, just to avoid embarrassment? Have you ever smiled and nodded when you heard nothing? That was me, every single day, hiding behind a smile, hiding behind silence because silence felt safer than speaking out loud. The fear was not just about English. It went deeper. It was about identity, about worth, about how others see you. When you cannot express yourself, you feel like you disappear. You feel like your thoughts, your ideas, your voice do not matter. And that feeling breaks something very quiet inside your heart. It makes you believe that fluency is only for certain people. people who grew up speaking English, people who studied in schools, people who studied in schools, people who had opportunities that maybe you never had growing up. But here is what nobody tells you about fear, honestly. Fear is not a sign that you cannot do something. Fear is actually a sign that something truly matters to you. You are afraid because you care, because you want this deeply. The moment I understood that, something shifted inside me slowly. I stopped seeing my fear as a wall blocking me. I started seeing my fear as proof of my desire. And desire, when it is strong enough, always finds a way. Fear also does something very specific to language learners quietly. It freezes your tongue right at the moment you need it. You know the word, you practiced it, you remember it, but when it is time to speak, everything goes completely blank. This is called communication anxiety, and it is incredibly common worldwide. Millions of learners experience this exact freeze every single day. You are not broken. You are not slow. You are not alone. You are simply human, and humans feel fear before they grow. The key is not to wait until the fear disappears completely. The key is to take one small step while still afraid, because courage is not the absence of fear inside your heart. Most language learners do not quit because they lack motivation. They quit because they are tired of feeling judged constantly, tired of being corrected in front of others with embarrassment, tired of feeling like their mistakes define who they are. The classroom can be a beautiful place to learn English, but for many people it becomes a place of anxiety. You raise your hand and your voice shakes with fear. You answer wrong and you feel every eye watching you. That feeling stays with you long after the class ends. It follows you home and sits with you at night. It makes you think twice before speaking the next time. And slowly, without realizing it, you start speaking less and less. This is why so many learners plateau and never move forward. Not because they stopped studying, but because they stopped practicing speaking. And they stopped practicing speaking because the judgment felt too heavy. The emotional cost of making mistakes in public became too high. Then I found something that completely changed this painful cycle. I started having conversations with ChatGPT late at night quietly. Just me, my phone, the silence, and my broken sentences. No audience, no eyes watching, no one waiting for me to fail. For the first time in my English journey, I felt safe. Safe enough to make mistakes without any consequence or shame. Safe enough to write the wrong word and try again. Safe enough to be a beginner without apologizing for it constantly. ChatGPT never sighed, never frowned, never made me feel small. It never said that question is too basic or obvious. It never made me feel like I was wasting its time. Every single question I asked was treated with patience and respect. Have you ever been afraid to ask a simple question? Afraid that someone would think you should already know this? That fear disappears completely when your learning partner never judges you. When your learning partner only exists to help you grow forward. I would type my sentences even when they were completely wrong, and ChatGPT would gently show me a better way forward. Not with criticism, but with clarity, with examples, with explanation. It would say, here is another way to express that thought. That gentleness changed everything about how I saw my own mistakes. I stopped seeing mistakes as failures and started seeing them as feedback. Every wrong sentence became a lesson I actually wanted to receive. Every correction became a stepping stone and not a source of shame. I also discovered something incredibly powerful about learning without social pressure. When you remove judgment from the equation, your brain opens up. You start taking risks with new words and new sentence structure. As you start experimenting with the language instead of just memorizing it safely. This experimentation is where real fluency actually begins to grow. Fluency is not about knowing every rule perfectly before you speak. Fluency is about being comfortable enough to try, to fail, to adjust. And ChatGPT gave me that comfort every single night without condition. I started asking questions. I was too embarrassed to ask humans. What is the difference between these two words that sound similar? Why do native speakers say it this way and not that? Is this sentence natural, or does it sound strange and unnatural? Every answer came back clear, patient, detailed, and completely without judgment. And with every answer, my confidence grew just a little more, not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily and consistently forward. Like a plant growing quietly in the dark before anyone notices. Most people wait for the perfect moment to start learning. They wait for the perfect course, the perfect teacher, the perfect time. They tell themselves they will begin when everything feels completely ready. But that perfect moment never comes, and the waiting never ends. I used to believe that I needed to be ready. Ready with a full vocabulary before I could speak confidently. Ready with perfect grammar before I could write a single sentence. Ready with a clear accent before I could open my mouth. That thinking kept me stuck for longer than I want to admit. It kept me watching other people grow while I stayed still. It kept me preparing to learn instead of actually learning anything. Preparation without action is just another beautiful form of procrastination. Then something very simple and very powerful changed my entire approach. I stopped waiting for perfect, and I started showing up daily. Not with big dramatic study sessions that lasted for many hours, but with small, quiet, consistent tests that added up over time. Every night I would open ChatGPT and write one thing, sometimes one sentence, sometimes one question, sometimes just one new word. It did not feel like much in the beginning at all. It felt almost too small to make any real difference, honestly. But I kept going because small was something I could manage. Small was something I could do, even on my most tired days. Small was something that did not require perfect conditions or perfect energy. Small was something that showed up even when motivation did not come. Have you ever started something with huge energy and then stopped? Started with a big plan on Monday and quit by Friday. That is what happens when we depend on motivation to continue. Motivation comes and goes, but consistency stays if you build it carefully. Consistency is not about doing the most every single day perfectly. Consistency is about doing something every single day, no matter what. Even 5 minutes of practice is more powerful than 0 minutes. Even one new word learned daily becomes 365 yearly. I started to see English not as a subject to master, but as a daily habit to build, like brushing my teeth. Something I did without thinking too hard or feeling too inspired. Something that became part of my routine before I even noticed. And routines are where transformation quietly and permanently takes place inside you. You do not feel yourself changing day by day in the moment. But one morning you wake up and your sentences flow more naturally. One afternoon you respond without translating first inside your head anymore. That is the invisible magic of showing up consistently without perfection. The results hide beneath the surface, for a long time, silently. And then suddenly, they appear all at once and surprise you completely. But they were always growing, always building, always compounding in the background. Wound. I also noticed that consistency built something deeper than just language skills. It built self-trust, the belief that I could actually do this. Every day I showed up was proof that I was serious now. Every day I practiced was a vote for the person I was becoming. And that self-trust became fuel that kept me going forward. Not the excitement of a new beginning or the rush of motivation, but the quiet, steady confidence of someone who has kept their promise. The promise they made to themselves in silence when nobody else was watching. Perfection would have stopped me before I even reached day 10. Perfection would have made me quit every time I made a mistake. Perfection would have turned every wrong sentence into a reason to stop. But consistency said, keep going. You are further than you were yesterday. There is a moment in every learner's journey that changes everything. Not a moment of perfect grammar or a flawless pronunciation, finally achieved. Not a moment of passing a test or impressing someone with vocabulary, but a quiet internal moment when your relationship with English changes forever. For me, that moment came when I started dreaming in English, not planning to dream in English, not trying to, just naturally. My sleeping mind had accepted English as something real and personal, not a foreign language anymore, but a part of who I am. That moment shook me in the most beautiful and unexpected way. I woke up and I sat with that feeling for a while. Something had shifted so deeply that even my unconscious mind reflected it, and I realized the shift had not happened overnight. It happened gradually. It happened because I had slowly changed the way I thought, not just about English, but about myself as a language learner. I had stopped seeing English as something outside of me and distant, and started seeing it as something I was growing from the inside. Most learners treat English like a subject they need to conquer, like an exam they need to pass and then put away forever. They study it from the outside, memorizing rules, collecting words like objects, but they never let it inside, never let it become part of them. That outside approach creates a permanent distance between you and the language. You always feel like a visitor in English, never truly at home. You always feel like you are borrowing words that do not belong to you. And that feeling of not belong to you, and that feeling of not belonging keeps fluency just out of reach. The mindset shift I experienced was about crossing that invisible line completely. From visitor to resident, from borrower to owner, from student to speaker, it was about deciding that English was not theirs. It was mine too. Mine to use imperfectly, mine to grow in, mine to live inside. Have you ever noticed how children learn their first language so effortlessly? They do not study grammar charts or memorize vocabulary lists at night. They simply absorb, imitate, experiment, and express without fear of being wrong. Their mindset is open, curious, fearless, and completely free from self-judgment. Somewhere along the way, adult learners lose that beautiful, fearless openness completely. We replace curiosity with caution and experimentation with the need for perfection. We start monitoring every sentence before it leaves our mouth for errors. And that monitoring slows everything down and blocks the natural flow entirely. The mindset shift meant returning to something closer to that child's openness. Not being childish, but being childlike in my approach to making mistakes. Seeing every error as interesting information and not as personal failure anymore. Seeing every awkward sentence as proof that I was actually using English. ChatGPT helped me make this shift in a very specific way, because every conversation I had reinforced a new bell about myself quietly. The belief that I was someone who speaks English, not someone trying to. That tiny difference in identity changed how I showed up every single day. Identity is more powerful than motivation when it comes to lasting change. When you believe you are a certain kind of person, you act accordingly. You do not have to force yourself to practice when practice feels natural. You do not have to remind yourself to study when studying feels like expression. I started introducing myself differently inside my own mind and eventually outside, not as someone learning English, but as someone who speaks English now. Not as someone hoping to be fluent, but as someone becoming fluent daily. That internal declaration changed the energy I brought to every single practice session. The mindset shift also changed how I handled difficult days and setbacks. Before the shift, a bad day meant I was not good enough. A confusing grammar rule meant English was too hard for someone like me. A misunderstanding in conversation meant I should stop trying to speak altogether. After the shift, a bad day simply meant today was a harder day. A confusing grammar rule meant I had found something new to explore. A misunderstanding in conversation meant I had discovered a gap worth closing now. The facts did not change, but the meaning I gave them changed completely. And meaning is everything when you are on a long and difficult journey. The meaning you attach to your struggles determines whether you continue or quit. The meaning you attach to your progress determines whether you feel encouraged or not. The meaning you attach to yourself determines the ceiling of what you can achieve. There is a story many people tell themselves about why they cannot learn. I did not have the money for a good English course. I did not have access to a native speaking teacher nearby. I did not grow up in an English-speaking environment or country. These are real challenges, and I am not dismissing any of them. But I want to be completely honest with you about something important. Resources help, but they are not what separates the fluent from the stuck. What separates them is something much simpler and much more powerful than money. It is desire, raw, burning, unshakable desire to change your situation completely. Desire that wakes up with you and goes to sleep with you. Desire that does not wait for perfect conditions before taking the first step. Desire that finds a way even when every door seems completely closed. I had no expensive course, no private tutor, no language learning app subscription. I had a phone, a free tool, and one decision made quietly. The decision that I was done waiting and done making comfortable excuses anymore. The decision that whatever I had right now was enough to begin. And that decision, that single internal decision, changed the entire direction of my life. Not a big dramatic moment, not a speech, not a special occasion, just a quiet personal promise made to myself in an ordinary moment. The kind of promise that nobody witnesses but you feel it, completely inside. Have you ever looked at someone fluent and thought they had advantages, thought they had better schools, better opportunities, better circumstances than you? Sometimes that is true, but most times, the real difference is simpler. The real difference is that they decided and then they kept deciding daily. Desire without action is just a dream floating around in your mind. But desire combined with daily action becomes something completely unstoppable over time. It becomes a force. Hat does not need perfect resources to move forward. It finds the cracks in every wall and pushes through them quietly. I used ChatGPT because it was free, and it was always available. Available at midnight when I could not sleep and wanted to practice. Available on weekends when no class was running and no teacher was online. available in my own language first, when I needed to understand something deeply. That availability removed every excuse I had been hiding behind for years. I could not say I had no time, because I found time. I could not say I had no access, because access was in my hand. I could not say I had no help, because help was one message away. And when your excuses disappear, something very uncomfortable and very exciting happens simultaneously. You come face to face with the only thing left standing in your way. Not your circumstances, not your resources, not your background or your past. Just you, your choices, and the question of how badly you truly want this. That question is uncomfortable because it places full responsibility back on your shoulders. And responsibility is something many of us quietly prefer to avoid for years. It is easier to blame the lack of resources than to face yourself. It is easier to say I cannot than to say I have not yet. But when you finally accept that responsibility, something incredibly liberating happens inside you. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you from your language plateau forever. You stop looking for the perfect course that will finally make everything click. You start looking inward and asking, what can I do right now today? I started asking that question, and the answers were always simpler than expected. I can practice one conversation tonight, even if it is only 5 minutes. I can learn one phrase today and use it in my thinking tomorrow. I can write one paragraph and ask ChatGPT to help me improve it. Leo actions taken consistently by a person with strong desire create extraordinary results. Not because the actions are special, but because the person behind them is committed. Commitment born from desire is different from commitment born from obligation or external pressure. It does not need reminders. It does not need rewards. It sustains itself naturally. I want you to think about the desire that brought you here today. The desire that made you press play and listen to this story carefully. That desire is not small. That desire is not ordinary. That desire is real. And real desire in the hands of a consistent person becomes something truly remarkable. You do not need to have everything figured out before you begin moving. You do not need a roadmap, a mentor, a classroom, or a certificate. You need the honesty to admit you want this more than your comfort. You need the courage to start with exactly what you have right now. Because the person who starts with little but burns with desire always finds more. They find more tools, more opportunities, more connections, more growth along the way naturally. The path reveals itself to the person who is already walking forward with intention. But it stays hidden from the person who is still standing still, waiting for permission.